I'll date a one-legged chick. Don't care at all. That's how fucking awesome. Status update. I date the one-legged.
Hypothetically with Will Noonan.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever time it is where you are. Thank you for listening to Hypothetically with Will Noonan. That's me, coming at you right now from my car, the Whip, the Honda Accord sedan. I am cruising on L Street into Summer Street, heading up north, up to the North Shore, up to Route 1. Not too far at all, going up to Giggles Comedy Club up in Saugus, Mass, up there. Comedy club owned by Mike Clark and his brother Lenny Clark, famous Boston comedy guys, of course. You probably heard of Lenny Clark or seen him in a shitload of movies, TV shows. Rescue Me, Something About Mary, all those shows, man. Super nice guy, super funny guy. One of the many guys around here now that I grew up watching and looking up to, and never could have believed that I'd ever be doing shows with these guys, much less palling around with them and being friends with them. It's really weird, sometimes. It almost becomes trite living in Boston. You sort of forget sometimes, like, man, we are surrounded by some of the best living comedians, some guys who have amazing stories, and sometimes it's true. I've bitched and moaned about it on this very podcast. The stories get old. You hear them all the time. You're, especially when you're like an MC and you're trying to climb the ladder, you're like, if I hear another fucking story about how much money you guys made in the 80s and how great it was, I get it. But sometimes, yeah, that can get on your nerves. But every time I'm really sitting around listening to Lenny Clark or Tony V or Sweeney, all these guys, Mike McDonald, all these guys that I watched growing up, every time one of them calls me up or texts me or even just says something friendly to me, I'm like, it's just weird. I never forget that shit, man. It's still cool to me. 11 years in. I've been thinking a lot today about being a comedian and how long I've done it. I feel like I mentioned the amount of years I've been doing comedy on this podcast. Minimum 12 times an episode. I just want you to know that I'm also aware of this fucking annoying fact. But I feel like I kind of need to preface every arrogant, stupid, know-it-all thing I say about comedy on this podcast. I say a lot of things. I'm like, so I need to always be like, remember, 11 years. I got my master's. I'm a fucking MD. I know what I'm talking about with this comedy shit a lot. And especially nowadays with this ridiculously retarded climate that we live in, where it's just so, it all boils down to a culture of status updates and tweets, and people really care more about that world and what's going on in that world than they do and what's going on in their real regular life, on a day-to-day basis. I think on both sides of politics, people are living in a fantasy world, an online fantasy world. I think the liberal, social justice type people are living in a fantasy world online that's actually more racist than the world really is. And I think right-wing people are living in a world online where white people and the American way is much more oppressed than it really is in their day-to-day life in the real world. But we've kind of become a culture of spin, and everyone knows how to make a statement and ride their thing. And it's just, I'm not going to get into it for the trillionth fucking time on this podcast, but it's made us a bunch of lamos. It's made us a bunch of fucking snitchy crybabies who just, basically, anytime we're not agreed with on any issue, now we just pull the panic button and completely just try and discredit whoever we don't agree with and whatever. And I guess you can already probably tell where this is heading, which is Michelle Wolf, who we briefly touched upon in the last episode when I was talking to Getlin, and thanks again for listening to that one. A lot of downloads, but personally, I don't give a shit. I'm going to stay politically sort of down the middle while I talk about this. But as I've said many times, I'm a comedian. I'm from Boston, Massachusetts, and I'm a pothead. So you can probably guess where I stand politically, or at least how I vote politically, right? But the thing that bothered me about this whole Michelle Wolf thing, I'm not going to focus on her material, which I just think I've never really found the White House Correspondents' Dinner funny. I thought it was extremely lame a couple years ago. I think it was John Oliver got a ton of love for doing it. It's always been lame, whether I like the president or dislike the president. I think political comedy is really fucking lame. I said that on the last episode too. I think The Daily Show is fucking lame, and I think comics who write mainly political jokes are usually pretty lame. It's like writing about sports jokes. It's like, great, dude. What's that funny for? A week? And it's always the same thing, and you're just plugging information into a formula you already have, like, oh my god, like, this president is like this president, and that means it's like blank gate instead of that Watergate. And a lot of the jokes are designed to just make people in the audience feel smart, in on the joke. They laugh. This comedian makes them feel like an intellectual and makes them feel like their NPR donations are going to the good place and everyone can see it, and they feel good. And a lot of times in the history of, in the recent new history of this sort of politically correct hypocrisy and all types of nonsense on the internet and social justice and people getting super upset and crying out over things, typically the right wing, the conservatives, the Reds, if you want to say it, the Bloods, they've been kind of the ones calling it out, saying, come on, you snowflakes, come on, you fucking college kids who want safe spaces, these are just words, they don't matter. And I'm not a right-wing guy, but that's the kind of shit I agree with, as a fucking comedian, especially as someone who uses language for a living. I don't want any further restrictions put on me or anyone else who also uses language, because when you start policing and censoring language, then next step is books, and then the next step is Fahrenheit 451, and then we're all butt fucking in like a cement room while flames come through the walls and none of us can breathe, and that's not gonna be fun for fucking anybody. So I always, I sort of lie in the middle of all this shit, but I always kind of liked how people in the media, especially the right-wing people, would sort of call out the bullshit of, defend free speech, defend the fact that, yeah, some jokes or things people say are off color and they're not sweet and they're not nice, but they're not against the law, and it is within a person's human right to say whatever the fuck they want to say. They can do that, and that's a part of conservatives, Reds, Bloods. That's a part of them I've always sort of liked. But then they all fucking let me down this time. Even some of my favorite people in the world kind of let me down, because it's like, you're gonna say Michelle Wolf crossed the line. You're gonna say Michelle Wolf crossed the line, and let me tell you, the person I'm ashamed of the most, the person who really needs to go fuck himself right in the face with his own fucking shit-covered dick, is Dennis Miller, former comedian, who he is not a comedian to me anymore. His comedian gun and badge has to be fucking permanently revoked for this one. Now, I don't know Michelle Wolf personally. I might be the only comic on earth who doesn't know Michelle Wolf personally, judging from the internet in the past couple weeks. But I have seen her do stand-up, and I saw her open for Chris Rock, and I really enjoyed it, and I thought her bits were super funny. Was she like my favorite comic in the world? Was she like one of my, top 5 like working right now? No, but super funny. She had like 2 or 3 bits where I was like, man, I wish I had thought of that. And that's really kind of the highest compliment you can give another comedian, and something when you see it, you know, you like them. Her special on HBO was really good, I thought, especially material-wise, especially writing-wise. I will admit her voice is kind of grating, and it gets on my nerves. I never like comedian, like, to me, voice is important. There's like one of the reasons I like Michael Che a lot, but sometimes his voice annoys me, just the way he sort of words things. Not Joe Coy, Mitch Fattel's another guy who has a voice I kind of don't like, but you know, it wasn't that bad. As far as voice comedians or comedians with interesting voices, it didn't really excuse me, kind of lightly register to me as not that great, but I could listen to it. But I enjoy, you know, whatever. I watched her jokes too, and I will say, like, they're right on par with every other stupid political joke I've heard, from making fun of Republican presidents like George W. and making fun of Obama. Those are basically the two, you know, once a year White House Correspondents' Dinners I've seen. I think they were calling it Nerd Prom for a little while, if I want to fucking get that right. It's just such a lame-ass fucking thing I would never want to do. But this year, I would have jumped at that opportunity, and I think Michelle Wolf, I think it's like a you can't lose situation. She definitely pissed off a bunch of right-wing people who never would have been her fan anyway. But as far as comedy, show business, the industry, and people who were fans of hers already, she's just golden. She looks like a badass. She looks like a rebel. It's like a can't-lose situation. You go in, you make fun of the least liked president in the past 50 years, and as a comedian, it's a home run. Everyone in the business was probably sending her jokes. Louis C.K. probably wrote half that fucking shit. I'm not saying that because she's a woman. I'm just saying, if any comedian on earth had that gig this year with Donald Trump in office, you're getting jokes from some pretty funny fucking people. But I don't think Michelle Wolf needs it. From what I've seen her do stand-up wise, and from what I've heard from my friends in New York who see her all the time and are friends with her. But all that fucking aside, there's a lot of people standing up for Michelle Wolf, and she doesn't need me or anyone else to really stand up for her. So I'm going to fucking let that go. But I want to focus on Dennis Dickless Cockface Miller. Dennis, the pussy lips as a brain Miller. Dennis, my eyeballs are made of diseased testicles from puppies that have been euthanized Miller. Fuck Dennis Miller. And that hurts. That's hard for me to say. The Off-White album was a big favorite of mine growing up. An album I've listened to many times. Dennis Miller, I would even say, is an influence on this young man named Will Noonan, whose podcast you're listening to right now. I always loved Dennis Miller. Fucking Dennis Miller. This fucking beautiful locks of hair, and he likes to say babe, and he was this hip 90s fucking sport coat wearing, fucking wisecracking hip dude. How can you be host of Weekend Update on SNL and then turn into an adult male who shits on comedians for doing exactly what they're supposed to do, by the way? That's like, the gig is you go roast the president or whoever's there. By the way, someone should talk about the fact that Trump didn't go. Oh, wait, everyone's been talking about that, so I won't. But Sarah Huckabee fucking Sanders, who's the same age as me and looks 20 years older, can fucking take care of herself, and she does not, her feelings are not going to be hurt by Michelle Wolf. And also, Michelle Wolf just basically called her evil and a liar. Didn't really make fun of her looks. I noticed a lot of people tried to go with that, but watch the tape, man. Look at the data. Look at the data. But people are allowed to like or dislike a comedic performance. Regular fucking people. Consumers. Audience members. Fans. Listeners. Whatever the fuck. you want to call it, those people are allowed to watch Michelle Wolf, tweet, fucking say whatever the fuck they want. And you know what? Even Dennis Miller. Dennis, the fucking, my balls are made of cancerous hairs wrapped together around an avocado pit to resemble a testicle. Miller. Even he is allowed to tweet about shit if he wants to, but, you know, don't call yourself a fucking comedian. And the way he said it was basically like, I'm going to spend the next couple days researching who this chick is, babe. And then I'm going to write a couple jokes about her. And they're going to be really fucking mean. And I thought it was also a little bit of like trying to get his troops riled up or get his fucking, his Twitter followers riled up. And it had that light little undertone of a threat, you know? We're going to give it to her, fucking Red Army. We're going to get this, us Bloods are going to get the Crips out there, the Blues, you know? It's fucking, it's just so stupid. And I would say the same thing. And I have said the same thing a trillion fucking times about the other side. You know? When social justice warriors are bitching about things, I've talked about it on this podcast a million times, and I've gotten a million fucking emails from some people who I saw on Twitter shitting on Michelle Wolf, you know, in support of me criticizing social justice warriors. And it's kind of, you gotta be, you know, you can't, if you can't take it, you can't dish it out, man. You know, people, you want to sit around and drop N-bombs? I support your right to do that, especially comedically. I'd rather you didn't drop N-bombs seriously in your life, but that's your right as an American to do that. But comedically, especially if you don't mean it, I support your right to do that. If you can figure out a way to make an N-bomb work, fucking go crazy with it. But at the same time, I also support, you know, Michelle Wolf's right to make fun of the fucking president of the United States. And also, by the way, everybody, I'm a stand-up comedian, and I like making fun of people in power. And asterisks, I really like watching rich people sweat and be uncomfortable. So whether or not you are a huge fan of Donald Trump or not, I don't mind. I won't judge you. Well, I might judge you a little bit, but I want you as a fan. I want you as at my shows, and I want to hang out with you. And you got a seat at my table if you like Donald Trump. I'm not going to not be friends with somebody or not hang out with someone based on something like that. But if you're the type of person who wants to fucking censor artists, motherfucker, and yes, I think comedians are artists, I'll go that far. But if I don't want social justice warriors at my table on either side. I don't want people who fucking can't handle, you know, a racial joke at my table, and I don't want people who can't handle a joke about their favorite presidential candidate at my table. And it's really as simple as that, right? And this is the same thing I got you know, saying earlier about this duality of an online life and an online world and the real world. You know, it's kind of like the old man who used to say, I hate blacks, I hate these coloreds. You know, Jim and Frank and John and the guys I work with down at the factory, they're cool, you know, they're good ones. They work hard and they support their families, but it's them out there, it's those blacks I don't like, right? We look back on that as antiquated thinking and someone being stupid and just old-fashioned. But we do the same thing now, all the time. You know, you spend all day online talking about cucks and Trump supporters or Trumpers or libs, or, you know, you're shitting on people online and you're throwing stones basically into like a dimensional portal, not knowing what you're hitting on the other side, but you're still throwing them as hard as you can. But then you get out of that world and you get in your car and you drive to the supermarket, and the girl who fucking helps you with your groceries is black, and she smiles at you and you smile at her, and now you're having a little conversation about the weather, and all of a sudden you're not a fucking racist like you are online. Or all of a sudden you're hanging out at a baseball game and the guy you've been talking to for 3 innings turns out to be a Trump supporter, and you're like, holy shit, I never thought I could be friends with a Trump supporter, or vice versa. I think a lot of people are living 2 lives right now, and it's almost like Dungeons I can't even fucking say that word. Dungeons and Dragons? You know? You got your pretend role play life that you have online, and then you have whatever the fuck this shit is. And it's weird because I think I've always had that life because as long as I can really remember, I've wanted to be a comedian or an actor. So I've always had this idea of like, okay, you know, I gotta sort of have an image, a public image. I gotta sort of like not go too far in either direction here. Or if I do, I at least have to realize that there's a consequence to that choice, and it could, you know, affect me, right? So I've been thinking since a very young age, how will this look? How will this affect? On some level, you know? I'm actually, the older I get and the more I became of a comedian and less of an actor, I gave less of a shit. But yeah, I have an audience now, and things I say will have some consequences. So I got to choose carefully what I do. But I'm a fucking comedian. I signed up for this. It's actually my job, you know? But the regular average fucking Joe now has pretty much the same pressures as a political candidate or a movie star did in the 1980s or 90s. It's like, all right, well, I got to wake up and I got to read the news, and then I got to figure out what my opinions are on these news stories, and then I got to get online and like put my hot take on it, and it's got to be a little bit different from everyone else's, and it's got to show people that I care, but at the same time I'm firm and I'm tough and I'm not going to take any shit. And I said the word gotta in there many times, and that was ironic, because the point is, you don't gotta do fucking anything, and you don't gotta keep feeding this stupid fucking machine of information, mainly bad information, that's just being consumed 24 hours. Like, I don't even know. Like, it's like we're hamsters, we're thirsty, the computer has water in it, and we're just licking away, like, with our little hamster brains, no idea whether we're drowning or drinking water, but it feels good, and it's an activity, so we'll just keep doing it. It's fucking weird, man. It's a weird fucking time to be alive. I feel like there are two different... I feel like I look online all day and see one America, and then I go out and I do stand-up shows at night and see another America, and they are super far apart. Like they couldn't be more different from each other. Whew, it's quite a little rant I just went on there. So I'm pulling into the comedy club now. Hold on a second. It's a fucking... If you don't know Route 1 in Massachusetts, it's a fucking goddamn... It's like a highway, but not a highway. I'm going to do something I often do at comedy clubs, which is park in the same spot I parked in last night, and I'll probably park here again tomorrow. I like to do that. I like to use the same parking spot all weekend if I can at comedy clubs. It's a little bit of a weird thing about me, but I don't know. What do you want, huh? I got some superstitions, I guess. Fucking roommate was in a bad mood when I left the apartment, too. Never puts me in a great mood when old roomie's in a bad mood. His wake is pretty big wake. All right, so anyway, speaking of wakes, Finnegan's wake, to be specific, I ran and listen to that voice I just used. Yeah, so I ran in a 10K. I immediately just shifted into douche mode to talk about the 10K I ran. Yeah, I ran, so what's the next topic? Oh, yeah, I ran a 10K. Yeah, you should all make fun of me for that. But, you know, I've been running for years. Really enjoy running. I've talked about it a few times on this podcast. I do. I love running. I'm not ashamed of that fact. Running's a good time. But I never was into running races or 5Ks, 10Ks, half marathons, that sort of thing. I never really got into it. I was kind of like just wasn't for me. I was like, the thing about running I like is that I just do it whenever I want to do it, and it's not this organized thing, and it's just fun for me, and I just like to do it, you know? But then I quit smoking, and really, I was running a lot, but then when I quit smoking, I started running like more and more. It was part of the Sober October thing, if you remember Sober Octobert, Bert Kreischer, and like Joe Rogan and all that stuff. It was cool as hell. I kept with it. And then I was like, well, you know, now I'm not smoking, I'm running a lot more, I'm making friends who run. I was like, maybe I'll do the St. Patrick's Day 5K in Southie, where I live. It's down the street, right? So I do that, I have fun, and then I signed up for a 10K, and next month I got half marathon coming up this month. No deal. But so I'm sort of progressing with each one, and I'm doing good. But it is, the thing I like about this running stuff is it's not all the things I've been complaining about for the past 27 minutes on this podcast don't apply there. It's not like comedy at all. The comedy world that I spend most of my time in is focused on thoughts, it's focused on words, it's focused on the mind, it's focused on jokes. That's just the stand-up part, and then you have the business part, which is a lot of egos and a lot of talk and a lot of fucking sort of mind games. And that's stand-up comedy. That's what this podcast is about, all that, right? And at first I think running was a light escape, just a relaxing thing. But now it's become a full-fledged hobby for me, and I have to admit I like it. And the thing I like about it the most is how not like stand-up comedy it is. Like, it's not in your head, it's not cerebral, it's not words. No one cares about race or how many of the runners are white or black or male or female, and who likes Trump and who doesn't. None of that shit is ever mentioned. And no one even fucking talks to me. Like, I go to these things by myself, and this is kind of arrogant, I guess, but I'm used to sort of going to events where I'm a part of the event. It's my job, you know. I go to a show, go to fundraisers, go to these things, and it's like I'm part of it. Like, I'm there to work. There's an energy to that. It's fun to go to one of these big 5K, 10K, huge race things and just be part of the group, part of the running group, and no pressure on me, and if I don't even fucking show up, no one cares. A lot of my life as a comedian is like, you better fucking show up, man, for comedian and acting work. It's like, of course, I like showing up, but there's always this thing like, it's kind of a little bit life or death. Obviously, it's not actually life or death, but people like to make it feel that way, or like to make you feel that way, especially like if they really want. If sometimes bookers get nervous, and in their mind, they're like, this comedian's gonna fuck this up, I can feel it. So then they just overly tell you, like, this matters, this is important, you know, this is important. And then they make you nervous or whatever. But I went to Dedham and did this 10K, which is 6.2 miles, I think is a 10K, and had an awesome time doing it. And it's a fun day for me. Like, I just get up. I got up in Southie early, and I drive out there by myself, and it kind of reminds me of like when I'm on the road. I'm by myself, I'm sort of anonymous, I'm moving through this crowd, and then the race starts, and you know, you have like some little small talks here and there with other runners, but for the most part it's like the solitary in a crowd. I think that's what I like, man. I don't know if that's like a reflection of being a stand-up or not, because I'll get back to something that happened on this race later, because there was something funny did happen. But I went to a Red Sox game the other day by myself. My brother gave me tickets to the Red Sox game. My friend bailed at the very last second. I went by myself, and I just Had my headphones with me from riding. I rode a Hubway bike over there. It's a whole nother story. I've been riding bikes around Boston. It's fun as hell. Rode a bike over to Fenway Park. And, also on my way to Fenway Park, I was wearing my Shalane Flanagan Bowerman Track Club t-shirt, right? And I'm biking through Boston Common, and I see this, like, good-looking blonde chick walking. And she's got one leg. And her other leg is like a bionic, like, cyborg, fucking awesome running type leg. And she's walking completely normally with this prosthetic. And she's good looking, blonde. And she sees me on the bike with the Shalane Flanagan t-shirt. And she goes, "Yeah, Shalane shirt." And I wave. And I now wish, it was a misconnection. I now wish I just turned that bike around and been like, "Hey, you want to go to a Red Sox game? I got 2 tickets right now. Let's do it. Let's do it." But alas, I didn't. So if anyone knows a one-legged blonde woman in Boston who's attractive and she knows that story, hook it up, bro. I'll date a one-legged chick. Don't care at all. That's how fucking awesome. Status update. I date the one-legged. Hashtag I'm awesome. Don't worry about it. But yeah, so here's the thing that happens when you run in races, which I didn't realize. I go running almost every day without many problems. But in the races, there's a mental thing where you tend to go a little faster, tend to push yourself a little harder. So after I finished the race, and I had had plenty of water and plenty to eat and stuff like that, after I finished the race, I was walking to my car, and I started to feel like dizzy and kind of like weird and lightheaded, and I'd heard about this happening. I'd heard this is a thing that happened, but it hadn't happened to me in like a long time, since like really a few years ago when I first started going for runs. And it was fucking scary, man. It scared me for 10 seconds. I've been pretty zen for months, but a little bit of hypochondria will came back for like just a couple seconds, because I was like, yo, I hope I'm not having one of those post-race heart attacks you hear about. Started to feel sometimes my hands get like when I'm dehydrated, my fingers, like one time the most I've ever run in one stretch is 16 miles, and when I finished, I couldn't untie my shoes, like my fingers weren't working, and I was like, ooh, maybe I need to rethink how I'm eating and drinking, and that was scary. And this had a little bit of that. Wasn't quite as bad, obviously. It was just 6 miles, but I did run it very quickly. I was doing like 7.5 minute miles, which is pretty fast for me. And but drank some Gatorade, took a 5-minute walk, and then got in my car and drove home, and everything was good. Actually went and visited with my parents right after, and if that didn't give me the heart attack, my heart must have been fine. But yeah, so I go to this Red Sox game alone, and I'm listening. So I had my headphones with me, and I just turned on this app that you can listen to the game on the radio. I'm listening to the game on the radio. I'm watching the game. I'm sitting in the bleachers. It's 85 degrees. And let me tell you guys, I was happy as a fucking clam. May have had the most fun I've ever had at a Red Sox game. And then I was like, I think I figured out what type of old man I'm going to be. I think I know what type of old man this dude's going to be. I'm going to be the type of old man who goes to baseball games alone, listens to them on the radio, and fucking loves it. I will be outside of Fenway Park when I'm 70, smoking huge joints, putting on my headphones, which in the future will probably be surgically installed into my skull. And I will be going in there and watching the game and listening to the fucking thing in my ear. And I am fine with that. I'm fine with it. I had such a good time doing that. I might even have to tell my brother from now on, just give me the one ticket. Give the other ticket to whoever you want. But just tell them I don't want to talk to them. Don't tell them you're giving one ticket to someone else. Why do I like to be alone so much, man? I don't know. I also like to be with people. I've been dating a lot. I've been trying to find a GF. It's not the easiest, man. It's not the easiest. Going on a lot of dates. If you're a long-time listener of this podcast, I have some issues with misophonia. and like the sounds people make with their mouths, like you know, when you're dating, you're spending a lot of time at people's houses and you're sleeping over people's places a lot. There's a lot of like that, you know. You know what I mean? Are you cool with that, people? Like, it's hard for me to sleep next to someone who snores. And I think I snore. That's the worst fucking part. I think I snore a little bit. And some snores I do not give a fuck about, you know? A light, feminine snore I can handle. And even a snore like a... that's a little much, but I could deal with that. But when it starts getting into like the... and the like making noises like that, I'm fucking out. Like literally I'll leave in the middle of the night. I've done it. I tell the chicks like, I don't feel good. And in a sense, I'm not lying. I don't feel good. I feel terrible about the future prospects of this working out. But and it's not to say all women do it. And a girl just told me the other day that I talk in my sleep, which I was like, really? I've never heard that before. So I was wondering if that was even true. But it's weird, man. It's a weird time we live in. Just talking to a buddy of mine who's straight and a buddy of mine who's gay at the same time the other day. And we were like comparing notes about the casual, anonymous kind of sexual encounters we're all having. And how we're all just like meeting at people's places and spend a lot of nights with strange people in strange houses. You know, I'm doing a bit right now about how, you know, no one's watched more murder TV than this generation. Like, no one's watched more murder shows. Like, we're raised on Law and Order and Blue Bloods, and not to mention Forensic Files and American Justice and Dateline NBC. No one's more educated on how easily you can be murdered than my generation. And no one's out there putting themselves in more murderable situations than us. If you take an Uber to a date, 2 murderable situations before you've had a fucking jalapeno popper. Think about that. Could have been murdered twice. It's 2 complete strangers. You've just put yourself, and especially with the Uber driver, you're putting yourself right in their fucking hands. I feel like I've said this before. I'm having that little voice in my head right now that's telling me that you've said this shit on either this podcast or another podcast before, which is hard. If you guys ever wonder if it's tough for comedians to remember all the things they've said on all the different shows they do, it's true. It is hard. And you can tell when we repeat ourselves a lot, we don't keep track of it very well. I will notice though with snoring, and maybe someone can back this up. Let me know. This is a Noonan poll, a hypothetically poll. I need to ask you guys a question of your experience with Asian people, because in my experience as a single guy dating Asian women, and I've dated many, a friend of mine saw me out with an Asian girl and said, I didn't know you were into Asians. I said, bruh, I'm not into Asians. I just date all races. I really do. I've dated every race but Indian from India, and that's not like for any reason other than just I've never never asked a chick from India out, and I've never been asked out by a chick from India that I liked. I got shot down once by an Indian chick once at a club in London, and I dated a white girl named India for like 3 years, but never dated an Indian chick. But that's not by rule or by choice, it's just by circumstance. But I have dated many Asians, many whites, a handful of blacks, I'd say 5 or 6, a handful of Jews, 5 or 6, a few Latinos, which that's also not by choice. I would love that number to be higher, but I just don't think I score well. I don't think I score well with Latina women. I've never been. That's another thing. So, all right, so here's the thing I've noticed. Asian chicks snore. I'd say 100% of the Asian girls that I've slept with, and that's not to, and I mean slept with, slept next to in a bed. I'd say 100% of the ones that I've slept next to, friends, hookups, everything, snore. And dudes too, now that I think about it. Is it an Asian thing? Do Asian people snore? Can my Asian listeners tell me? Can my Asian, I know a lot of you cucks out there are married to Asian women. Come on, you libtards. You fucking closeted gay. That's something my brother said once when he was drunk. He was like, guys who are married to Asian women, they say it's the last step on the way to gay. I'm like, what? I've never heard that before. And I don't even know if sometimes my brother makes stuff up when he's drunk about the gay community. I think he just wants to give me things like, he's like, here's a secret. Have fun. And it's not real. But yeah, man, there are, that's another thing you're not allowed to say, like, nowadays, like, there aren't differences between races. It's like the differences between the races are what makes everyone great. And sharing cultures and sharing things is what makes everyone great. You should be learning from each other, not fucking just pretending like everyone is exactly the same when we're not. Everyone has strengths, weaknesses, picadillos, idiosyncrasies. The world is not designed politically, it's designed actually. And, Asian people snore, white people steal land. People do what they do. The races do what the race is gonna do. Speaking of Asian people, congrats on the Koreas, North and South. Way to get it together. I don't know what's going on there. I haven't been following it that closely. A lot of people are saying it's because of Donald Trump, and if it is, I'm happy for him. Getting some good stuff done. Speaking of dates, I went on a date with a chick who teaches autistic students, and I think she thought it might be fun to go out with a comedian, and then halfway through the date realized she was wrong because I was just saying stupid things. One of the stupid things I said to her was, I thought, you've heard it on this podcast, I was like, you ever think autism is like evolution? Like, in the future, like, we won't even need emotions, because of all the technology, and we'll just basically need to be smart, remember things, and sit in front of a computer, which are all autistic traits. Like, we won't need social cues in the future. She's just sitting across from me blinking like, you probably think vaccinations cause autism. I said, no, they don't. I don't think they do. But I think that, I was like, it's just a fun thought experiment. And she's like, it's my life. No, she didn't say that at all. But she just gave me that look I've gotten from many people over the years, which is just a blinking look like you're kind of special, huh? You kind of got a special little brain in your head, don't you? Oh, bless your heart. Oh, bless your heart. You guys notice in your life that people are using... when emojis first came out, like racial... When emojis first came out and you could use races in the emojis, at first, everyone was using their race. Like, you'd make the emoji look like you. So if, like, a bunch of people were in a group text... everyone, if you had all different races, all the thumbs up or something would be that person's race. That was the beginning. And then I noticed that the more hipster, sort of politically woke folks of color and of non-color, of white, started using the yellow, blank, Simpson-y, just non-racial emojis instead. And then I started to feel a little bit judged for using the white emoji. So then I started slowly noticed everyone's kind of transitioning to using the racially ambiguous emojis. And that's when I started thinking that maybe I'm alive during the worst era of humanity. Because this is the kind of shit we worry about and we talk about. It's insane. It's insane. I meant insane, but I said insane. Where is my one-legged lady? Take me to a land where people don't complain about trivial shit all day. And people are like, Will, you're a white male in America. You don't have anything to worry about. That's why this annoys you. And that's not true, because on a daily basis, I see these little cracks. And I don't mean in white maledom. I mean, it just scares me right now. It scares me. I don't know where these weird fucking accents are coming from. I've been watching a lot of House, and I think maybe House's weird version of a American accent has been bleeding into mine, because I've been watching about 3 episodes of House a day. Will, how do you find the time? I don't sleep much. I don't get a lot of sleep, so I watch House, and I fucking think of nicknames for Dennis. Tree bark soaked in dog cum, licked by a leper Miller. I just think about nicknames for him all day long. But it's just so weird. You know, it's like there's just this weird thing I've noticed where people kind of shit on white people all the time. And there was even something with the Avengers, like on the Tonight Show, where they read mean tweets, and the Olsen girl who plays the Scarlet Witch was reading her mean tweet, and it said something like, Elizabeth Olsen looks like typical white, blah, blah. It was just something, but it said white, and then she laughed like, ouch, that hurt my feelings. Could you imagine any other race on Earth going up there and reading, like, in a funny comedy way, being like, oh, this person thinks I'm a typical black piece of shit or something? It's like, that's horrible, and it's horrible about every race. You can't just be like, I mean, if this whole shitting on white people thing just lasts a couple months, fine, you know, fun trend. But I don't see it that way. People are racially segregating themselves like to beat the band right now on the internet and everywhere else they are, and they're just everyone's just trying to. It's just, I don't even know. It's like we're reverting to high school kids, and it's like my clique's better than your clique, and the black clique understands the way the world is, and the white clique doesn't. And man, when the white clique thinks they know what's up, they don't know what's up. And why can't we just all get together and realize that, Asians snore? All right? Asians snore, and we want to talk about it. Send me your emails about snoring on dates, about Asian people snoring, and about, I don't know, things different races do on dates. Whatever. I'm always looking for fun emails from you guys. Send them in, willnoonanComedy@gmail.com, or you can go to my website, willnoonan.com, and check it out. I think speaking of dating and Tinder, a girl I was talking to on Tinder, and it was going pretty good, and she was like, hey, where can I see some of your comedy? Where can I see some of your videos and stuff? And I was like, oh, check out my website, willnoonan.com. I've been texting back and forth with this chick for days. It's going pretty good. Don't hear from her for like 2 days after I send her my website. And then I'm like, hey. And then she's like, sends me this thing. She's like, yeah, I met somebody, and it's basically, she cut me right out, yo. And I was like, hey, the act giveth, the act taketh away. Sometimes people see your stand-up comedy, and they're just like, oh, man, I need to fuck that guy. And sometimes people see your stand-up comedy, and they're like, ugh, fuck that guy. But the way she broke up with me was, not break up, because obviously we had never even met, but whatever, broke off the conversation or ended the text or whatever the fuck this weird thing is. It was worded so well, and it made me feel like it made my feelings not be hurt. It gave me hope. It was like the perfect, and I'm not going to say it, and here's why. Because I copied and pasted it, and I've put it in my folder on Google Drive, and I'm going to use it. And I've already used it once, and it works really well. You're always looking for the perfect way to let someone down easy. This chick did it. She gave it to me. She used it on me. It hurt a little bit. It hurt a little bit, motherfuckers. She might not know I run 10Ks. It hurt a little bit. But I was like, I'm going to take something from you, and that is this great way to let someone down easy. And I'm going to copy and paste it. I'm going to change a couple words around to make it about women. Make it for women instead of for me. And I think that chick, and I've already used it once, and it worked really well. So, want to thank that random Tinder chick for doing that. Also, going on in the world, we're wrapping up here. Kanye West says slavery is a choice. Disagree, Kanye. Disagree. I actually think the definition of slavery is working against your choice. So, but, Kanye West's got an album coming out. I was listening to one of the songs today on my run, and it ain't bad. So, he'll sell a lot of albums. Don't take Kanye West too seriously. He's a fucking idiot. Also, Infinity Wars came out. I don't want to spoil anything. I'll have to wait a few weeks till I really, really talk about it. Could even maybe do a whole podcast about it. Loved it. Loved it. Loved it. I'm obsessed with Marvel, have been for a couple years. I've talked about it a little bit on the podcast, but I don't like to bore you guys too much with all my stupid hobbies, just the running and stuff like that. But Infinity Wars was awesome. If you're on the fence about seeing it, I don't know why. Go see it. It's super fucking good. Also, if you want to know that line the chick gave me, you can DM me or email me and I'll tell you. I just don't want to say it on the air because I don't want everyone using it. But I'll tell you if you hit me up. What else? That's pretty much it, I guess, for this week. Cutting it a little short, but not much. Damn, I feel like I could do a couple more minutes, though. I got a Snickers bar here. It's just sitting right in front of me, and I've been looking at it the whole show, just like, I'm going to have that Snickers bar. After I finish this podcast, I'm going to eat that Snickers bar, and then I'm going to go in and do some comedy, and then I'm going to decide what I want to do with the rest of my night. Pretty interesting stuff. I saw a kid, I was talking about that autism teacher. I did an outdoor gig last week, and it was rough. It's for a good cause, though. But I was outdoors, and there's little kids there and shit. And I was on stage talking, and I'm looking at the crowd. Sometimes lately I've been good enough at stand-up comedy where I almost I can really go someplace else while I'm doing it. Like last night I was doing stand-up, and I noticed these two flies were on stage, like at my feet. Two flies. And they were having some sort of looked like they were having like a standoff. They were like rotating around in a circle. They weren't flying, they were walking, and they were like, I don't know if they were eating something that was on the ground, but when one would move one way, the other would move the other way, and they were kind of like keeping their distance, and it seemed like they were sizing each other up or some shit. And I'm doing my stand-up comedy, and I'm just doing these jokes like I always do, and they're doing it. There's Jimmy Dorsey. Dorsey! I'm doing my podcast. I'm about to finish it. You want to be on it? James Dorsey just parked his car. Comedian. I'm doing the podcast. I'm finishing it up. Come here. Actually, I can get out. I don't need you to run over here. I thought that was you. What's up?
What's up, Nooners? How we doing, brother?
Pretty good. Let's face the woods.
Exactly.
We're standing here in the back of Giggles. I'm about to be done. I just figured it would say what's up.
Well, I appreciate it. I appreciate the time. We're gonna go kick some ass tonight. Like we did
You, me, and Jimmy calling.
That's right, baby. That's right.
Where are you coming from?
I'm coming from my house.
Yeah.
Okay, Auburn, Mass, A-Town to the layperson.
What kind of gum is that you're chewing right now?
I honestly have like 6 different pieces. There's cinnamon candy. Cotton candy, bubble gum, and spearmint.
That really explains. I was like, there's the weirdest fucking smell coming out of your mouth. Right? It's not a bad smell. It's 18 different types of flavor.
I'm so juvenile. I have to constantly have bubble gum in my mouth at all times.
I mean, me too, buddy. Anything you want to plug, man? People come see you. Twitter.
I'm kind of slow on the Twitter. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I'd say so. It's been out for about a decade.
Yeah, I know. I still have a MySpace page I'm working on.
Well, it's my good friend James Dorsey. Do you have a website? You have a website, right?
JamesHasJokes.com. Come check me out. Full schedule's up there, pics, the whole 9.
There you go. Go check that out, and we'll be working together soon. Absolutely. Come see us tomorrow night.
Absolutely. Giggles Comedy Club, Saugus, Route 1. Be there or be square.
Yeah, tomorrow night we'll be there. All right. Oh, and if no one told you they love you today, I do. That's my sign-off. You want to say it?
I love Will Noonan.
That's good. Your gum smells like Sambuca.
There might be a little bit of that mixed in there too.
Test. Fucking neighbors think I'm crazy. Ba ba ba. Ba 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 ba. Dick-dick-dick-dick-dick-dick-dick-dick-a-doo. Dick-dick-a-dang. Tick-tick-a-tang. Head into it. Test. 5-0. 5-0 creepin'. 5-0 creepin'. Ticket to test. 5-0 creepin'. 5-0 creepin'. Hey, it's your boy. Test. 1, 2. Good morning. 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 Good afternoon. Good morning. Good afternoon. Good fucking morning. Good fucking afternoon. Good fucking evening. Good morning. Good morning. Boston accent coming back. Good morning. Good afternoon. Good 1, 2, 3. 1 2 3 Test. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Good evening. 3, 2, 1. Good. 3, 2, 1. 3, 2, 1. 3, 2, 1. 3, 2, 1. 3, 2, 1. 3, 2, 1. Good morning. Good afternoon. 1, 2, 3.